First contact and misjudgment. High above the edge of a quiet solar system moved a silver ship, silent and invisible, drifting past the orbit of a blue planet filled with water mountains, machines and strange life. Inside that ship stood Thal, a commander. From a distant star empire known for conquest and cold logic, he stood before a wide screen that showed the planet called Earth spinning slowly in space full of light and clouds. Thal folded his hands behind his back and stared at the world below. With curiosity and doubt, this was the place many whispers had spoken of. This was the place where war lived in every story of humans. He had seen transmissions gathered from decades of human data signals flying across space uncontrolled. They showed images of tanks roaring across deserts, airplanes dropping fire, cities falling in smoke, people shouting in rage, skies dark with ash, oceans rising in fear. To Thal and his crew, this planet was wild and backward. He thought these humans were strange beasts fighting each other every chance they got. He smiled for a moment and said to his second officer, "They are loud, they are angry, they are weak. We can conquer them in days and teach them peace after the fires." But something else spoke from the machines deep inside the alien ship. The scanners picked up something strange, something heavy, something sleeping under the surface. Buried inside forests, under seas, hidden behind mountains, lay weapons so large, so quiet, so patient, that even the machine paused for a second. Thal moved closer and asked his engineer, "What are those signals?" The engineer replied softly, "These are not fake, these are war machines made by humans, strong enough to shake the air and melt the ground. Some are deep in ice, some hidden inside floating machines above the sky. Some are inside moving vehicles the size of cities." Thal raised an eyebrow and said, "That is not possible. They are a primitive race. They should not have these things. Run another scan, find the truth." The ship obeyed, and more data came in waves. They found heat signatures from human bases where machines roared day and night. They found drills where flying objects broke the sound with metal wings. They found strange rods made of dark matter hanging in orbit pointed at the ground. One rod dropped during a test and created a shock so wide that dust circled the Earth twice. No missiles, no fire, only speed. Thal turned to his crew and asked, "Are these for defense?" The silence in the room answered for them. He ordered playback of recent human military drills, and the ship found one. A large open desert where hundreds of machines moved like shadows. Drones in the sky flying like birds, unmanned, silent, fast tanks underground rising like beasts from sand, lasers testing targets from miles away. Humans walking among them, calm, focused, quiet. No shouting, no chaos, only practice. The drill ended with a wave of energy that jammed even the alien ship's sensors for a second. Thal stared at the footage again. There was no sign of fear in the humans, no sign of panic, only precision. He asked softly, "Why build so much power if they are not at war? Why keep such fire if they do not use it?" His officer replied, "Maybe they are not the ones who start wars. Maybe they just end them." Thal sat down slowly, his mind spinning. He thought about their history. Humans had fought great wars and still rebuilt. They had made weapons so deadly and still kept them locked. He thought of the strange idea that maybe these humans had learned something dangerous, not how to destroy, but how to choose when not to. Outside the ship, Earth kept spinning, clouds moving over oceans, night chasing day. Inside the ship, one alien commander began to wonder if they had truly found a primitive world, or if they had just awakened a sleeping giant who smiled only because he chose not to roar. The power that shouldn't exist. The sky outside the alien ship stayed dark, but the minds inside grew restless and loud. Thal stood again before the glowing screen, his eyes fixed on a battlefield, not of war, but of training. He watched with his crew as human forces moved like clockwork across land, sea, and air. Each machine spoke with silence, each command followed like rhythm. Metal birds flew without pilots, moving faster than anything the crew had seen in real time. Some turned in the air without wings, some changed direction without slowing down. Below on land, large machines walked without wheels. their legs strong and heavy but graceful like beasts made of stone and steel. From hidden corners beams of pure light shot across long distances, touching targets with no fire, only melting air. Thal clenched his hands as he whispered, "This cannot be their real strength." He asked his tech officer to dig deeper into human files. The ship reached into Earth's open systems, pulling data from satellites, abandoned networks, secret archives. They saw old records, old battles, old tests. Thal stared at a video from the past where a tower vanished in smoke within seconds. Another file showed an island shaking as the sea pulled back and a fire brighter than the sun rose from nowhere. The explosion left a mark still visible from orbit. These were not myths, these were real. They saw weapons powered by Adam's tools that used the core of matter itself to break the rules of nature. Thal sat down for a moment and asked his crew, why would a race build such weapons and then bury them? Why not use them to conquer or control? His engineer spoke in a low voice. Maybe because they fear their own strength. Maybe they learned the cost of power and chose silence instead. Another voice in the room added, maybe their peace is not weakness, maybe it is warning. The screen changed again and now showed humans in labs testing new weapons. One test showed a weapon that used sound to break steel. Another used invisible pulses to stop machines mid-flight. Some tech was beyond alien science, made with materials that humans called memory, metal, liquid stone, smart dust. Weapons small enough to fit in a hand, yet strong enough to turn walls into ash. Thal rubbed his face with one hand, feeling unease grow in his chest. He had seen many worlds fall to empires. He had seen proud species broken by war. But this world, this Earth, stood still with fire inside. Not because they lacked power, but because they seemed to wait, and waiting was what scared him most. He turned to the ship's eye and said, "Find any human record that speaks about war strategy or reason." The eye responded with a file. It played a voice recorded during a human military session. The voice said clearly, "We do not fight to win. We fight only when there is no other way. And when we fight, we do not plan for victory. We plan for silence." Thal felt a cold wave pass through his body. These were not the words of warmongers. They were the words of those who had seen too much. He looked again at the screen now showing Earth's cities glowing with life, joy, color, children playing in parks, people walking under stars, songs filling the air. And deep beneath that peace were weapons sleeping, quiet, cold, ready. He whispered again to himself, they could destroy any enemy, but they choose not to. Why? He asked the ship to calculate what would happen if a fleet like theirs attacked Earth. The ship paused longer than expected, then replied, all projections show failure. Earth will detect the attack long before arrival. Earth will respond with force that disables fleet before landing. Earth will not negotiate until enemy power is gone. Thal stared at the projection of his own fleet being erased by invisible strikes. Before reaching orbit, no warning, no mercy, only precise end. He stood up and said, this is not conquest, this is suicide. The crew remained quiet. Every member now understood what they had touched. Not a wild race, not a foolish world, but a people who had placed swords in the ground and dared others to test their patience, and now the test had already begun. A strange silence filled the ship, not from fear of death, but from the growing truth that power without control is danger, but power with control is terror. Thal turned away from the screen and whispered to himself, they do not avoid war because they fear it. They avoid it because they have already won long before it begins. The unspoken doctrine. Thal walked through the narrow hall of his ship, the light above flickering, as if unsure whether to stay or vanish. His mind spun with questions, thoughts, fears that refused to settle. He reached the central core, where private access to the Galactic Council could be made without alerting the fleet. He placed his hand on the console and whispered his code. The signal flew across stars through silence, seeking ears that rarely listened. When the connection opened, he saw the face of a high official, calm, proud, distant. Thal spoke with respect and said, Earth is not what we believed. This race is not Weak, not confused, not scattered, they are prepared in ways we do not understand, the council member replied without emotion. We have watched them for many cycles. They are loud, they are chaotic, but they are contained. You are overreacting, Thal leaned closer and said, no, I have seen things, weapons buried in silence, waiting for no command. Machines that erase targets without fire. Strategies that speak of peace only, because destruction is too simple for them. The council member dismissed his words and said, return to orbit, collect final readings, and move on. Earth is not a concern. The screen faded without further reply. Thal stood there alone in the dim blue light. He knew now that no one up there would listen, so he turned to his own team. We will search deeper, we will go where others do not look. He ordered the ship to tap into restricted zones around Earth, old satellites, hidden frequencies, cold signals floating in the dark for years. What they found shook them more than any weapon. A network built by humans not to strike first, but to strike last. It was named Project Silence, a system designed to monitor space threats and activate only if Earth was in danger of extinction, not made for attack, not made for revenge. Made to finish any threat in the shortest time. It was global, it was quiet, it was always watching. Thal studied the files. He found that this project used orbital rods, underground cannons, sea drones, ice worms, and weather-based energy pulses. He found codes that connected across every continent. He found logs from human leaders saying this system must never be used unless there is no other choice. He found a message buried in the code, written in over 30 human languages. It read, we do not raise our voice. We do not show our strength. We do not run toward war. Because when we act, there will be nothing left to end. Thal looked up from the screen, his face pale, his voice low. This is not defense, this is warning. He called his crew and shared everything. Some refused to believe, some sat in silence. One asked, why hide such power? Why not show the galaxy? Thal answered, because the galaxy respects loud power, but it fears quiet power more. They do not threaten because they do not need to. They do not boast because they do not have to. He stood near the large front window, watching Earth below spinning like a calm eye in a storm of stars. He began recording a message. It was not for his fleet, not for the council, but for history. He said to the recorder, I have walked among flames of war across 10 systems. I have seen races burn their sky to dust, but I have never feared any of them like I now fear this world below, because these humans have built silence not out of weakness, but out of memory, because they know what happens when power speaks without reason. He ended the message with a truth he could no longer ignore. They avoid war, not because they lack courage. They avoid it because they know they will not lose. And that knowledge, that confidence, is the most dangerous weapon I have ever seen. The confession above the blue planet. The ship floated in silence with the crew still. Locked in thought, Thal stood near the front of the command deck, watching a quiet world that hid storms deep within its calm. He had seen their machines, their weapons, their patience. Now he feared their next move if provoked, but trouble had already begun without his knowledge. Far beyond the moon, another alien fleet from a rival faction had entered the system without warning. This group had ignored warnings. They had no respect for fear or caution. They saw Earth as a prize, a weak planet holding too much power in careless hands. They believed that fear was illusion and silence was emptiness. Thal received the signal too late. A warning tone echoed through the ship, followed by a visual feed from deep space. Dozens of sleek ships moving fast. Without care, without stealth, without thought, they moved toward Earth with arrogance in their trail. Thal shouted for a direct channel, but there was no answer. He sent message after message to the leader of that fleet. He warned them again and again. This world is not like others. Turn back before you wake something that will not go back to sleep. Still no answer inside. The command deck, his crew watched as the rival fleet crossed the invisible line where Earth's defense systems began their silent scan. No missiles fired, no lights blinked, no alarm sounded. But something changed in the stars. Suddenly the alien ships slowed without reason. One ship spun in place, another began drifting as if caught in a net of gravity. Thal leaned closer and watched as signal after signal from the invading fleet turned to static. Then came the real shock. The Earth responded not with fire, not with sound, but with stillness. A single message was sent into space, simple words in a human language translated across all known signals. It read, "We are not here to destroy, but we are ready if you force our hand. Return home while your ships still have shape." The rival fleet tried to pull back, but the damage was done. Systems locked, weapons disabled, power drained. Not a single ship was lost, not a single life was taken, but the fleet was broken, without a shot. The alien ships drifted slowly in retreat, guided by invisible forces pulling them away from Earth. Inside Thal's ship, no one spoke for a long time. They all knew what they had witnessed. Not victory, not mercy, something greater: control. Earth had shown power without rage, force without death, a lesson without a blade. Thal looked at his crew and spoke quietly. They could have erased them. They chose not to. This is no accident. This is a message. He opened the message again and stared at the words. Not a threat, a promise. We do not rise in anger. We wait, but when we move, there will be no second move. He recorded his second report to the council. He said, "I have witnessed the truth of Earth. They have the strength to burn us all, but they carry that strength like a memory, not a tool. Their silence is louder than our armies. Their peace is made of iron, not softness." He ended his message with words that came from deep fear and deep respect. We called them wild, we called them unstable, but we did not see the full shape of their shadow. Now we see it. Now we must decide whether to honor their silence or face the moment when that silence ends. Galactic shift. Far beyond the edge of Earth, a new voice began to rise across the stars. The message from Thal reached the Galactic Council and spread like fire through quiet halls and ancient minds. At first many refused to believe the report. They said no world could carry such power without noise. They said no race could hide such strength without pride. But then came the images, proof, clear records of what happened to the invading fleet. Ships left whole, but frozen, weapons turned to dust without heat, commands ignored by machines no longer listening. The council gathered in a room that had not seen fear in many years. They watched the footage from Thal's ship. They listened to his voice. They read the message Earth had sent. Every word simple, every meaning clear. We do not want war, but we will not lose. The council argued for hours. Some wanted to place Earth under observation. Some wanted to avoid the system forever. A few suggested reaching out with peace at last. A decision was made. A signal would be sent to Earth, not with power, not with threat, but with respect. A request, an offer. The signal left the council tower and traveled fast. It crossed cold space and reached the blue world below. On Earth, humans saw the message appear on their space channels. No demand, no warning, just words. You have shown restraint. You have shown power. We offer alliance, not fear. We seek peace, not pride. Human leaders read the signal in silence. They sent a reply within the hour. No special meeting, no show of force, just words. We do not rule. We survive. We do not reach out. We protect what is close. If peace is what you bring, we will answer with the same above the planet. Thal stood once more at the window. He watched lights blink across the sea, cities glowing like stars, machines flying in peace, not war. He whispered to himself, they never wanted to conquer. They never wanted to lead. They only wanted to live. And yet the galaxy came knocking. Now the galaxy must listen. He opened his third and final report. He spoke with no fear and no doubt. Earth is no threat. Earth is no savior. Earth is the line we did not see. They are not gods. They are not monsters. They are what happens when power grows beside pain, when memory becomes shield, when silence becomes sword. The council received the final message and marked Earth as protected, not under watch, not under rule, but under respect. Thal's ship left orbit and moved toward deeper space. Behind them, Earth kept spinning, calm and bright. The stars looked no different. The sky held the same light, but every crew member aboard knew the galaxy had changed. Not with fire, not with battle, but with a truth, a quiet truth, that true power does not shout true power. Waits, and when it moves the universe will feel at the end.